after graduating from the University of or Washington State. Ryan,
right.
What's that?
Make sure you get that one right.
I know. Is it Washington State University?
Yes.
Okay.
The University of Washington is the devil, so we don't talk about that. Yeah.
All right.
It's like It's like Clemson, South Carolina, right?
Yeah. Right. I'm here speaking with Ryan Leaf, a former NFL quarterback and current mental health advocate and motivational speaker. After graduating from Washington State, Ryan was the number 2 draft pick and played for the San Diego Chargers and Dallas Cowboys. We are here today because I am speaking with past speakers of the Courage Center's annual fundraiser day in May. Courage Center serves everyone affected by substance use disorder. I wanted to speak to Ryan, not only because he spoke at the Courage Center's Day in May last year, but Ryan, you are, as far as people I've met personally, I don't think I've known anyone who suffered from stigma more than you. I think there are probably millions of people that watched your substance use play out and the consequences.
That guy Ryan Leaf from Washington State.
Wow.
Got to be right.
Troubled former quarterback Ryan Leaf has been arrested.
Leaf was accused of burglary and drug activity. In a plea deal, he pled guilty to the charges.
Former NFL quarterback Ryan Leaf was arrested Friday in his Montana hometown.
Ryan Leaf has been arrested for the second time in just 4 days. This is Leaf's latest mugshot.
I'm both humiliated and embarrassed for the situation, not only for myself, especially for my family.
Quarterback Ryan Leaf was sentenced to 10 years of probation.
The strange story of Ryan Leaf has taken another turn
with a plea deal by customs agents.
His career was the epitome of a bust.
Ryan Leaf has been arrested.
Leaf was indicted in May in Canyon, Texas.
Tell us a little bit about your journey in sobriety or to sobriety with substance use, or what that was like.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. That was a very powerful day in May last year when I got a chance to come to South Carolina and speak to everybody around the Courage Center. I thought it was incredibly impactful. And stigma is a huge part of what I talk about, because I think it's incredibly limiting for people. The idea that someone may know that you need help is more scary than actually getting the help that you need. And that, for me, is the definition of stigma. And so during my substance use disorder, and listen, I've never touched a drug in my life. The only drug I've ever taken is a prescribed painkiller. And so the fear of someone may knowing that I was addicted to something like that, it was just, and having been such a, the big, strong football player, having never seen another man actually ask for help, you figure it out. My dad was a 2-tour Vietnam veteran, never saw him cry, be vulnerable, transparent, and anything like that. So like stigma is taught. Like we don't come out of the womb and look at people with a mental health disorder or a substance use disorder and think that they're different. That's been taught to us, and it's a learned behavior. And so what we have to do with the platform we have is to change that belief, to change that and educate people differently. The idea that it's a disease and that if treated appropriately, you can go into remission and have the life of your dreams, I think is one that people would look at completely differently if that was the common knowledge. And it is. It's the science. It's been in science medical journals since the 1960s around it being a disease. And so that's an incredibly important piece to this, one that I really stand up to talk about. It also, I think, goes a long way for somebody who's going through those types of struggles to have a why this is happening to me. Why am I behaving this way? Why am I acting out this way? Because of this brain disease that is affecting you, that can be treated. I think that can go so far, and especially with this generation that's coming along, they're the biggest generation around why. Why is this happening? Why am I doing this? Why is this happening? All of those things. And I think that can go a long way. So that's a huge part of my platform, one that I continue to try to talk about on a daily basis.
I agree with stigma and just how much it keeps people down and keeps people from wanting to get help. And I like what you said about the big strong man asking for help and just not being used to that, especially the pro football player and everything that you were. It was so powerful during your talk last year when you played in the very beginning, how you played all the clips of the headlines and the news reports and pro football player Ryan Leaf arrested for blah blah blah, and then sentenced to however much time in prison, and just over and over again. And it's headlines that we don't shy away from. I don't turn the channel when those come on now. I watched Justin Timberlake's DUI last week, and Tiger's issues, and we watch and we're glued to that. And here we were in the room with someone going through that, and many people remembered you going through that. And there you were in a suit, cleaned up, ready to present. And it just really, I felt like it drove that home even more, that message of the damage stigma can do.
Oh, I think it's just a message of hope. No matter what has happened, you can't control or change the past. You can't. You can start over wherever you're at and change the ending. That's what it is. And it speaks to what you can control. And it's things that limited you from doing maybe the next right thing is because you were trying to control so much, a version of you that the public needed to see. And so in that video, I like to show that. Like, I show a montage of everything breaking down, and showcasing it to everybody. I find it a little interesting to see some of these news stories that have come out recently, and around the optics of whether or not you were really good at what you did, and Tiger Woods, for example, incredibly good golfer, maybe the greatest golfer to ever play, and how kind of differently some of the optics are looking. Like, oh, he's been through so much, he's had so many surgeries, well, I had 15 surgeries, but I wasn't good as an NFL football player, so like that wasn't given as the benefit of the doubt. He just needs to get himself a driver, or needs to get a doctor that will prescribe him the medication, so he doesn't have to go to somebody's house and take it.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me see how things are, where I think when addiction and substance use disorder and mental illness come into play, everybody has to be treated the same. Like, you can have unique qualifiers to things, but we're all these flawed human beings trying to be better every day, and we need to be treated as such. And a lot of that comes down to tough love. You have to make it very clear to them, like, your way doesn't work. Your best thinking is clearly taking you to the worst possible scenario here. So you need instruction, and you need guidance, and you need an intervention. You can't do this on your own. And I found that to be the best way to treat this, the best way to go about it, to say, when people says, I can't leave work and go to treatment because I'll lose my job. And I'm like, you're going to lose it anyway. Eventually you're going to lose it anyway. This is just a slow creeping thing, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. On the other side of things, when the promises happen, same thing, difference when you're not attacking the disease at the forefront, like sometimes quickly in my case, sometimes slowly in others, where it can take a decade, in the hopes that you're still around for you to find that answer and find that solution. I think it's a powerful message, and it's one that's been viewed through, by looking through blinders. People who have experienced some of these things, they view it. Those that don't want to, or see it as some taboo, they view it through those blinders, and don't let anything else on the outside affect it differently. And I think that's changing. I do. I think more and more people are willing to speak up, but I still think everybody, though, they can stand up and say, that was really courageous and powerful that person asked for help. But when they have to go through the same situation, they still feel gripped by that stigma and aren't willing or able to ask for the help themselves.
I work with people in recovery now, and one of the biggest things one of my biggest obstacles in the very beginning, especially, is shame, and getting them over the shame. And just, it keeps people from getting help. Jerome Adams, the Surgeon General, in 2017 had a great quote that we lose more people to shame than we do overdose. And it's sad. You had your stigma from the research I've done, it goes back to like high school in your hometown, even.
Yeah.
And what was that like?
Well, when you're I think when you're so different, and I don't mean um like as a human being, I just think as institutionally in our country, athletics is such a different world, right? And when you are just
Mhm.
so much more talented than everybody else and you have a different mindset around that, it
Mhm.
ostracized me a bit. You know, people criticize my attitude. I don't necessarily think it was a bad attitude. I think I was just uber competitive and wanted to win,
Mhm.
wanted to get out of that small town. And, um, I wasn't really accepted. I wasn't the popular jock because I wanted to leave, and I wanted to go do bigger things. And no one had ever really done that before. And so, I didn't really think about it much then. I just was trying to trudge forward, but it had its effect. It affected me in a way where, um, I always felt like someone was up against me, like people were coming after me. So I was always on the defensive. And I feel like that still exists today. I still find myself on the defensive in situations just because it's been so ingrained in my life for so long,
Mhm.
and that ultimately is shame, right? They're telling me you are bad,
Mhm.
the difference between shame and guilt, like the idea of guilt is that you did a bad thing. Around shame is you're a bad person. And so that's what I heard. That's what I felt from everybody around me, even ultimately my parents, because they were so worried about what other people thought. And
Mhm.
I could see that through my mother, that she was so fearful about what other people thought, not only of her son, but of her then in a connection because she raised him, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, and having grown up with an addict herself, her father, I understand that. Like, there's a lot of fear there,
Mhm. Uh-huh.
and protecting that and the image of everything. And so I think that's where I learned where to lie or where to present a different kind of picture to everybody else. And so when that falls apart, like your only response is backed into a corner is to fight. You just
Mhm.
fight and fight and fight. And when you get to the highest possible level, you don't have the luxury um of having good people around you because you surrounded yourself with sycophants and enablers, and they just
Uh-huh.
take you down a further road in that direction to fight. It's not you; you're the victim, and there
Mhm.
has to be a moment of clarity and accountability where, like I can't control what anybody else does. I couldn't control what those people did. I could have
Yeah.
controlled by my attitude, my behavior, and my effort. My effort was through the roof. Attitude
Mhm.
wasn't great. Behavior then followed. So there were ways for me to correct that. And I've forgiven them in my recovery. Um, I don't think they've forgiven me, and that's okay. The amends process isn't necessarily for them, which is ironic that you're
Right.
apologizing and making amends to these other people. But
It's funny
that's
how
an
that
important
works.
part of all this for me,
Mhm.
especially with a community that I felt wronged by, and then in turn return to said community and victimize the community. Um, there really isn't a high road I can never take again because of what I've done.
Wow. That's so interesting with all the accomplishments and since then, and it still exists. But like you said, in certain situations, you still feel that stigma and everything because it's so ingrained. And
It is. It's something I just think I just in a lot of situations I don't think it will ever go away. I do think the affirmation what other people think of me is none of my business has been a huge
hmm
uh motivator for me. I say
hmm
that on a daily basis. A humility is liking the guy I see in the mirror. That's what humility is to me. With
Excellent.
all the baggage, with all the scars, all of it. So I
hmm
know what you see,
hmm
and you can judge that if you like. But I know what I see too. And I see the same thing you do with all the scars and everything like that. And I like that person because I know what's come out of it. You don't like that person because you're holding on to this, that, or the other, and I can't control that. And so those are things that you actively have to continue to work on with therapy, with meditation and prayer and stuff like that, and acceptance. And so, this is a self-experiencing journey that you're going to continue to go on for years and years and years. It's not something where you just wake up and go, "Oh, I'm cured." That's not how this works. It's a continued assault on it to keep it in remission.
And I'm so glad it is. 'Cause I can imagine it. Speaking of controlling people, what they think, and people, places, and things, your attitude, effort, and behavior, that was such a powerful statement you mentioned last year. And a friend of mine, his kids that are both under the age of 10, they know, if he says, okay, what can you control? They know to say attitude, effort, and behavior. And it's thanks to him being an
Really?
audience member of your talk. Yeah, he drives it home in them. And
where that started from was teaching my child. He was 8 years old. That's where that started. And the connection from me just trying to teach that to him on what my recovery and the things I could, like, it all was all connected. So when I hear that, that's exactly where it started with me, was trying to teach my 6-year-old at the time, the things that he could control and how he could change those behaviors and attitudes at home around things as little as, like, you got to go take a shower. And then all of a sudden the huge pouty face comes out and sulking and everything like that. And I'm like, well, what thing that you can control are you struggling with here right now? And he understands it. He was like, attitude. And I'm like, would you like to try some effort here and turn that behavior around? And he's like, nope. So, like, he gets it, and there's consequences to it. So, I mean, it's a learning experience for him, but that's where it started. That's very powerful. That's neat to hear from you. Thank you.
Yeah. There's such freedom in it, because I think what causes us so much turmoil, whether you are someone who suffers from substance use disorder or not, is trying to control things, trying to control the outcomes, and being able to let
life
go
skills.
Yeah.
And I struggle with that still too. Sometimes I'm impulsive as always, and I look at things when they're over and see that they were a test, and like I failed it miserably, but but I didn't go use then I stepped up to the mic and I said, "Oh, I screwed up there. That was some old behavior. I'm sorry. Is there anything I can do to make amends for it?" Like, those are completely different behaviors than what my addict behavior was like, right? I would be so full of shame in the past where I would want to go self-medicate and disappear and not feel any of those things, right? It's hard to feel, criticism from others. It's hard to see, like, oh, that was a difficult version of me to handle, But in the end, that's not going to kill me. Like, there's a ton of perspective in the world I had to come through, waking up on a prison cell floor, going through that whole process, walking out, going to parole, seeing a cartoon in the newspaper the next morning that just made fun of me in my hometown. Like, I mean, there's never going to be an experience where I'm like, oh, I got it better than anybody right now. What are we talking about here? So that's the grateful aspect of perspective for me is really become kind of my superpower.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've heard you say perspective is your superpower, and it's so true. So true. I love that you touched on the family and whether or not they've forgiven you. Since this is, the Courage Center is founded on the family deal, and then Dr. Johnson is going to be speaking about his being a family member growing up in it, what message do you give to families going through this?
Well, I think that the families need to understand that when you have an addict or alcoholic or somebody dealing with a mental health disorder in your family, I don't think you understand how sick the family gets. Enabling, dealing with an addict in full-blown addiction in your home and stuff like that just leads to a family sickness. And when that individual goes to treatment, they're doing work every single day on themselves. And if the family in some way, shape, or form isn't doing some sort of work as well to correspond with that, everything returns to the same that it was when that person enters life again. Come home and muscle memory just takes over because they're triggered. It's just, you've been a certain way for so long, just because you go to a place for 30 days or a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
your muscle memory is still there. And when you're at this place, you're in the safest environment you'll ever be in. And no matter what happens, when you walk out into the real world, life is going to smack you in the face. It's going to give you the test immediately. And what you want to do is you want to build that toolbox while you're in there, and the family has to do the same. And so that's a really important piece to all this for me is how important it is for when someone goes and seeks the treatment, that the family understands that during this process, their illness, though different than the individual that's going through the addiction, an illness still exists and needs to be treated.
9 times out of 10, the first people that call me about someone in active addiction is a family member or spouse or something. They'll go through the story and everything, and what this person has done, what they've caused, the harm and everything. And one of my first questions is, what are you doing for yourself? And it's silence on the other end.
Yeah, my father, I remember I asked my father if he would start going to Al-Anon, and he just couldn't wrap his head around it, because he saw going to that as him being a problem or having a problem or something like that. And I remember asking him one time, like, wouldn't you want to have a better relationship with your son to understand him better? And just because of that stigma, right? That exists around alcoholism, addiction, like, no, you're the one with the problem.
Right.
I'm fine, so we'll be fine.
If you get fixed, I'll be okay.
Yeah. And that sucks, because later in life, when you're an adult and you have kids, their grandkids, you want to have a better relationship with your parents, and mine's kind of gone in the other direction. And that's sad. But also when you're that age, when you're mid 70s, getting close to 80, like, it's hard to change behavior. It's incredibly hard to change behavior and ideas that you have in your brain. So I get that. There's a lot of reading of books around narcissism and understanding of letting them be, let them be. And so, there's a lot of that goes on. It's just, it's a constant thing that we're evolving with.
Definitely. Well, Ryan, thanks so much for all of this. Thanks for coming last year and doing this, and just sharing your experience, strength, and hope the way you do, and with so many people. The worst thing that happened to you has turned out to be the best thing, and not only for you, but for the thousands of people that hear your message, or millions, or however many it is that now hear your message. And
and you never know what's happening when it's happening too. Like, if you would look back on what March 30th, 2012 looked like for me, I thought it was the end of the world, right? In the eyes of a lot of people and myself, it was the end of the world. And to now see it years removed from that, 14 years removed from that, my world doesn't spin without it. It doesn't. It's made me who I am. It's given me every tool in my toolbox to be a better human being, a better parent, a better father, a better partner and husband, friend, brother, all of these things that it's given me. And so how can you not live in gratitude? Does it suck that you had to go through that stuff? I mean, I don't know. I don't know, in the moment, maybe, but like it just doesn't, I don't wear it now. I don't, I look back on it and I can pull from it like anybody's experience, and whether it was trauma or not, that's being dealt with, that's why you deal with it in therapy and stuff like that. But it's a very important piece to a full life.
Exactly. It gave you your superpower perspective.
Yes, sir.
Because no matter what goes wrong now, it's like, well, I'm not in a prison cell.
Not in a prison cell. That's for damn sure.
Exactly. And so glad you're not. And keep up the good work. Next week, you'll be playing at Hootie and the Blowfishes Monday after the Masters with Edwin McCain and Jim Sonnefeld, who have also been speakers. So that'll be exciting that you'll all be together.
Maybe we'll get a foursome together called the Courage Center foursome.
There you go. Do it. Love it. Well, have a great time at that and have a good rest of your day. And thanks again for everything.
You bet, John. Thank you so much.
Thanks.